Strength is seldom forged in iron or amassed in coffers of gold. The truest power is minted in the eyes of those who behold you. The ruler who grasps this begins his reign before he issues a single decree. For every gaze turned upon him is a battlefield where authority may be won or squandered. Appearances are not mere ornament. They are armor and sword at once, both shielding and striking. If your garments whisper prosperity, if your posture declares certainty, if the rumor mill churns tales of your invincibility, then your enemies are disarmed before they draw steel. Cultivate reputation as a gardener tends roses. Prune lies that might betray you, nourish truths that serve you, and let thorns grow where rivals might grasp. Never permit others to see the sweat of your labor or the tremor of your doubts. You may bleed in private, but in public your stride must suggest inevitability. When faced with calamity, display serenity. When fortune smiles, respond with measured gratitude, never giddy excess. Your subjects must see you as the master of fate, sculpting the tempest rather than buffeted by it. Should a plague ravage the city, appear among the afflicted draped not in fear, but in antiseptic confidence. Should war drain the treasury, host a feast whose splendor convinces courtiers that coffers are bottomless. A single tableau crafted with care can outweigh leagues of whispered concern. Reputation is a ledger more sensitive than any bank's books. One rumor can bankrupt it overnight. Counter gossip with spectacle, not with argument. If tongues wag that you are weak, march through the square in burnished armor beside soldiers who would die on your gesture. If whispers claim you covet foreign influence, convene a senate and let foreign envoys bow as supplicants. The unspoken message will drown the whispered lie. Words are wind, images are stone. Set monuments to your glory, where the sun can strike them, and even illiterate peasants will read your might in marble. Yet mastery of appearance is not mere vanity, it is strategy. Men obey what they believe to be inevitable. When they believe your ascent unstoppable, they will decide it is safer to join the procession than to stand in its path. Your very confidence becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy as allies flock and rivals disband. In this alchemy of perception, belief transmutes into reality. Therefore, never confess uncertainty, never negotiate without the air of magnanimous superiority. Even in retreat you must exude the calm of a lion stepping aside, because the hunt requires patience, not because the prey threatened him. Do not neglect subtlety. Overt displays of wealth and pomp can harden envy. Envy begets conspiracy. Temper grandeur with curated humilities. Feed the poor on festival days. Walk the market in simple garb once each season. Allow an old soldier to approach your days and speak familiarly of past victories shared. These tokens cost little yet purchase oceans of goodwill. They suggest to the mob that your greatness is their own reflected glory, and men guard jealously what they think belongs to them. Guard your private life behind an impenetrable veil. The moment servants leak tales of debauchery or miserliness, your sculpted visage cracks. Replace spies among your household staff to monitor their tongues. Reward silence more richly than service, and punish indiscretion more severely than theft. Mystery, once established, breeds awe. Subjects will invent legends in the blank spaces you provide, attributing superhuman discipline or secret wisdom to the shadows surrounding you. Give them a silhouette, and they will furnish it with splendor. Even allies must be managed through perception. Praise them publicly for virtues you wish them to display. They will strive to embody the image you project, lest they appear unworthy of your endorsement. Should an ally grow too popular, elevate him further, into heights so dizzying that any fall would shatter bones and reputation alike. His survival will then seem tethered to your favor, and gratitude will weld his ambition to your cause. Thus, the appearance of generosity conceals the reality of control. Finally, understand that perception is fluid. Yesterday's triumph is today's gossip, tomorrow's oblivion. Refresh your image as seasons turn. Adopt new symbols, commission frescoes depicting fresh victories, cultivate younger confidants who speak eagerly of your timeless relevance. Complacency invites doubt, doubt invites rebellion. The mirror of public opinion never stands still. Polish it daily, lest dust dull your reflection and rivals claim the shine. In this ceaseless maintenance lies the secret to becoming untouchable, For while mortals age and empires crumble, the illusion of inexorable power can outlive both prince and palace, provided it is tended with tireless vigilance. And let the mirror show only the sovereign that others must see. Mercy is a pleasant perfume, but its fragrance evaporates in the heat of conflict. Cruelty, applied sparingly yet savagely, lingers like iron in the blood and reminds every onlooker where dominion truly rests. A sovereign who resolves to become untouchable must regard violence as a surgical instrument. Hesitation emboldens adversaries, and protracted punishment breeds martyrdom. Only rapid, concentrated force breaks the back of defiance while giving rebellion no time to coalesce. When rebellion flickers, one must extinguish it in a single gust. Scatter the embers, leave ashes, then turn calmly to the next affair of state. The image of decisive cruelty will cling to memory long after the wounds close, discouraging fresh conspiracies before they dare cross the threshold of thought. Consider the anatomy of terror. Terror is most potent when uncertainty is removed. The rebel who expects clemency sharpens his dagger in secret. The rebel who knows the price of dissent sleeps with one eye open, praying never to be summoned. To create that certainty, punishment must be public, spectacular, and finite. Public, so that rumor cannot soften its severity. Spectacular, so that imagination cannot outpace the visible fact. Finite, so that the populace sees order restored, and daily life resumes under your benevolent control. Endless cruelty dissolves into noise, but a single thunderclap splits the sky and etches itself in collective memory. Speed is the twin of severity. Dragging out reprisals invites sympathy for the punished and exhaustion for the punisher. The moment guilt is established, retribution must follow like lightning upon the flash. Delay suggests indecision or doubt. Doubt relocates power from throne to tribunal, from sovereign hand to gossip-laden corridors. Remember that men assess authority not by abstract laws, but by the swiftness with which decrees translate into consequence. Where sentences linger unsigned, authority dissolves. Where sentences fall like an axe at dawn, authority becomes atmospheric, woven into the very breath of the city. Yet cruelty is the servant of order, not its master. One slaughter too many, and the streets run red with resentment. The ruler must therefore balance terror with predictability. Execute the guilty without pity, but spare the innocent conspicuously. Offer the crowd a reassuring rhythm, an outburst of wrath followed by a season of peace. Citizens will learn that loyalty shelters them under your canopy, while treason invites a fate too gruesome to articulate. They will whisper to children the lesson you inscribed in flesh: obedience equals survival. In that whisper lies the true harvest of cruelty. To administer punishment personally amplifies its effect. A duke who delegates every execution to faceless officials appears distant, perhaps manipulable. A duke who rides to the square, speaks the verdict aloud, and watches until the sword is wiped clean conveys omnipresence. His visage engraves itself on the condemned and on the multitude. But let the sovereign's face remain composed, almost bored, as though cutting down traitors is a mundane chore, no more disturbing than auditing taxes. Fear mixed with awe matures into reverence, raw fear alone festers into hatred. Timing also wields influence. The hour chosen for retribution should break routine. Before dawn, city gates barred, drums rolling through fog, torches spilling light upon scaffolded platforms. Such disruption startles the populace from dreams into raw confrontation with authority. They cannot avert their eyes. The memory fuses with their first breath of morning air. When merchants open stalls at noon, they speak of nothing else. By sunset, the narrative has calcified, uncontested by rumor because fact arrived first. Cruelty may extend beyond corporeal harm. Exile, confiscation, the erasure of a family's name from civic records, all pierce the soul more deeply than any blade if administered ruthlessly enough. Seize estates of traitors and redistribute them to stalwart allies. Thus the punishment of one nourishes the loyalty of another. Let the treasonous lineage vanish from chronicles. Portraits burned, graves unmarked. Oblivion is the most terrifying penalty, for man endures agony easier than anonymity. Remember, too, that cruelty carried out through proxies can deflect resentment. An official already disliked can be tasked with imposing levies or quartering troops. When dissatisfaction rises, The sovereign dismisses him in a flourish of justice, slaking public anger while preserving the system that generated it. Thus cruelty becomes both hammer and shield, forging authority while absorbing blows meant for the crown. Above all, accept that decisive violence is a form of mercy to the state. A brief reign of blood forestalls years of civil war. A single ruthless edict spares countless skirmishes in alleyways. The true cost of leniency is paid in drawn-out suffering, lawlessness, and the slow corrosion of respect. Better to pay the fee in a single heavy coin than scatter small change across generations. Once the dreadful payment is made, put the sword back on the wall, visible, polished, and waiting, for its silent presence thereafter will police hearts more effectively than patrols in the street. Loyalty is a fiction told by the weak to justify their subjugation. In the theater of power, every man is either a tool to be used or a threat to be neutralized. The untouchable ruler does not ask whether a man is friend or foe. He asks only how long that man's usefulness can be maintained and at what point his ambition must be stifled. Sentiment is an indulgence that costs too dearly in the currency of influence. The wise prince leverages relationships like weights on a scale, balancing one man's greed against another's envy to maintain dominion through calculated instability. No one must ever feel irreplaceable. Trust is not given. It is constructed, piece by piece, for a single purpose: utility. The minister who flatters you in public may betray you in whispers, but if his flattery secures the loyalty of the court, then his deceit is irrelevant, until the day it costs you more than it gains. On that day, he must fall. The soldier who harbors resentment may still break the enemy's line if promised coin and honor. Therefore, resentment is tolerable, but disobedience is not. One must judge men not by their words, nor by the emotions they pretend to feel, but by the deeds they consistently perform in pursuit of their self-interest. Reward is a more precise blade than punishment. Give titles and wealth not to the deserving, but to those whose loyalty is required at a specific time. Buy silence by action. Buy allegiance, but never buy friendship. Friendship is blind. It asks nothing and therefore produces nothing. The ruler must demand everything and reward only those who deliver. When a man has outlived his usefulness, the gift of exile is mercy, and the edge of a dagger justice. Divide your servants in function and ambition. Those with ambition but little power should be kept close, given crumbs of favor to feed their hunger, while keeping their claws blunt. Those with power but little ambition should be sent to the provinces, tasked with grand responsibilities that occupy their minds and exhaust their spirits. The ambitious and powerful must never be allowed to converge in one man. That is the seed of insurrection. Should such a union arise, break it with scandal, assignation, or elevation. Promote the man to a post far from the center, where his greatness dissolves into insignificance. Do not hesitate to pit one man against another. Rivalries are the scaffolding of a stable rule, for men consumed by personal vendettas have little time to conspire against the throne. If two advisors seek your favor, reward them unequally and observe which proves more eager, more pliable. If two generals loathe each other, grant them equal honors and let their jealousy fuel victories. It is the sovereign who controls the fire who decides which forge it heats and which body it burns. There is no shame in using a man who would use you, so long as your hand is on the lever. Espionage, flattery, seduction. These are not crimes in the world of power, they are tools of trade. The courtesan who gathers secrets from foreign dignitaries is more valuable than 100 honest soldiers. The merchant who brings gold into your coffers while cheating the poor performs a service that strengthens the realm. Their sins matter not, so long as their gain is your gain. Yet tools wear down, and even the sharpest blade dulls. A wise ruler observes the signs: the guard who drinks too freely, the diplomat who delays without cause, the servant whose eyes linger too long on maps or keys. Do not wait for betrayal to manifest. Preempt it with reassignment, demotion, disgrace. Allow the whisper of your awareness to reach them before the lash does. Fear of consequence is more binding than affection ever was. Those who cannot be used, or who refuse to be used, must be stripped of position swiftly. There is no place in the machine for a cog that grinds instead of turns. and those who serve another's ambition, be it a foreign prince, a noble bloodline, or a god. Serve no master but their own design. Identify such men and contain them, for they serve not your state, but an invisible empire whose will you cannot direct. In the calculus of power, every relationship is an exchange. There is no neutrality. The man who observes you in silence weighs his chances. The man who praises you seeks a return. The man who opposes you declares himself a tool in another's hand. Identify the hidden motives of all who orbit your sphere and place them accordingly, lest you become the tool without knowing whose hand grips your hilt. Fortune is no gentle mistress to be wooed with charm and reverence. She is violent, capricious, and contemptuous of those who worship her in stillness. To survive her storms, a ruler must neither rely on her favors nor curse her when they turn. Instead, he must treat her as a force to be anticipated, shaped, and when necessary, dominated. The untouchable man is he who understands that waiting is surrender, and who approaches change not as an interruption, but as an opportunity to enforce his will while others hesitate. Fortune bends most easily to those already in motion. Men who freeze in the face of uncertainty become its victims, swept aside like debris in a flood. The sovereign who thrives is one who builds levees in the dry season and digs escape channels before the rain. He gathers intelligence not merely for knowledge's sake, but to map the paths along which chaos will move. If war is on the horizon, he recruits before the trumpets sound. If grain prices rise in whispers, he buys the silos before they echo into shouts. To adapt is not to react. It is to act so early that response becomes anticipation, and anticipation becomes command. Some rulers cling to one style of rule, believing consistency a virtue. These men are easily broken. Fortune punishes the inflexible with irrelevance or ruin. The wise prince is like a river. When the current flows strong, he moves with it, appearing effortless. When boulders block the path, he splits, erodes, or diverts. A policy that once brought applause may, in new seasons, invite rebellion. A man who was useful in peacetime becomes a liability in war. Do not hesitate to abandon yesterday's virtue if it becomes today's shackle. The untouchable ruler evolves faster than his enemies can adapt to him. Adaptation demands that one not merely change when forced, but that one court change as a weapon. Fortune favors the bold not because she respects courage, but because boldness alters the terrain upon which she plays. When others crouch and delay, the bold act, and in acting, they reshape the future. To claim initiative is to seize the pen from fortune's hand and draft one's own fate. When the markets tremble, buy. When thrones totter, offer support or push. When disease breaks cities, do not retreat to palaces, flood the streets with law, food, and spectacle. Enough evil lies your moment to redefine the order. It is better to err in audacity than to falter in hesitation. Fortune may forgive the man who strikes too hard, but never the one who did nothing. Action invites risk, but inaction guarantees decline. Let others debate the morality of a decision while you harvest the fruits of its consequences. Do not mistake deliberation for paralysis. The wise ruler calculates quickly and moves at once, not because he is reckless, but because he has trained himself to see the world not as it is, but as it could become if his will were imposed upon it. Yet this ruthlessness must be masked in grace. Adaptation is not wild lurching, but disciplined transformation. Like a serpent shedding its skin, the change must seem inevitable, even elegant. Surround yourself with those who speak the language of change. Youthful minds unburdened by nostalgia, seasoned commanders who have learned to shift tactics as terrain demands. Reward those who bring you new intelligence, new technologies, new strategies. Punish those who speak only of how things once were. Let the court whisper that you are unpredictable, so long as they never say you are unprepared. Even in defeat, the adaptable man finds leverage. If battle is lost, retreat in such a manner that your enemy fears pursuit. If a law is rejected, rewrite it to serve your purpose under another name. There is no purity in power, only persistence. Let each failure become scaffolding for a stronger ascent. A man who cannot be broken by misfortune terrifies those who depend on it. The untouchable ruler treats every reversal not as humiliation, but as a forge to retemper his will. To adapt ruthlessly is to live above the expectations of time. The people believe in fate, in cycles, in the gods' tempers. You must demonstrate that the only force guiding their lives is your judgment, more constant than the stars and more present than their prayers. In this mastery of shifting circumstances lies a power greater than mere wealth or armies, the ability to remain necessary, desired, and feared regardless of how the world changes. To become untouchable is not to retreat behind walls of virtue or sentiment, but to walk the knife's edge of power with eyes unblinking and will unshakable. It is to command perception like a sculptor commands stone, shaping fear and admiration into a figure too towering to challenge. It is to wield cruelty not as a savage, but as a surgeon, quick, clean, and unforgettable. It is to see men not as equals, but as instruments to be played, managed or silenced according to their tune. And above all, it is to treat fortune not as a god to be worshipped, but as a tempest to be ridden, reshaped, and, when necessary, overthrown. The untouchable man does not ask to be loved, for love fades. He does not ask to be fair, for fairness binds. He asks only to endure, and in that endurance to reign.